Greetings, fellow retro fans. Thrashpondo Pons is the final RetroPal interview before we finally have our reunion in mid-July. Thrash has talent, pure and simple. He's not only a gifted aficionado of all things retro nostalgic, but he is also, in my humble opinion, a great entertainer. Just check out his YouTube channel and you'll see what I mean. Heard any great dumb dad jokes lately? His lists are hilarious, not just because they're funny, but his squeaky-clean comedic timing and delivery makes them all the more entertaining. Enjoy this interview with one of my favorite people on the planet and hear Thrashpondo's takes on his favorite TV shows of the latter 20th century. Enjoy! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast the esteemed, and I might add, super talented, Thrashpondo Pons. Hey, Bob.
Hello, Pat. It is an honor and a privilege.
I may have just screwed up your entire moniker right there because everybody's like, Thrashpondo Pons Bob.
You know, more and more people know me as Bob these days anyway, because when I tell stories, I always refer to myself as Bob, because very few people off camera know me as Thrashpondo.
Well, okay, Robert. So, the question is...
Oh, I'm only Robert when I'm in trouble. When I hear Robert, I'm like, what do I do now?
Yes, Patrick, same deal here. First question. Where did Thrashpondo come from?
That is an excellent question, and at the risk of name-dropping my own channel, hint, I actually do a post on that. But I shall make a long story short. As of course you know, I am an avid reader of science fiction, and my favorite science fiction author of all time is Brian Wilson Aldiss. He wrote a short story called The Legend of Smith's Burst. And one of the principal bad guys, his name was Thrashpondo Pons. And it had a remarkable ring to it. The last name was remarkably similar to mine. And so it just... When I started gaming, I used the name Thrashpondo as my gamer name, and it just kind of stuck. But unless you're an avid reader of Mr. Aldiss's bibliography, there's no way you could have known that.
Yeah, well, I certainly didn't, and I loved it. I mean, as soon as I saw that, I went, Thrash Man! That's it! I love it! You know, it's
thank you.
It's a great nickname. And so, you know, I got to say, folks... let's see, I'm going to call him Thrash because that's what I call him. Robert?
And I shall call you Pat because that's what I call you.
It's like, make up your mind now. So, Thrash, you are one of the 4 RetroPalooza bros.
Hey.
And happily, I have this will be the 4th and final interview with this extremely elite club of gentlemen.
Rounding up the top 4, I must say.
I know, and it's like
4.
Somehow I think I just blew my own horn because I'm one of them, and it's like, yeah, extremely what? Well,
you cannot, Pat. I mean, your stuff is outstanding. Your stuff is absolutely outstanding. So you know, it'd be the old joke. People say I'm conceited. I can't see why. No, you deserve to toot your horn as much as you'd like because it is not false praise, I must say.
And that, folks, is how you fish for a compliment. There you go. Class is dismissed. No, look.
I went fishing with Salvador Dali. Use a dotted line. I caught every other fish. But a bump.
See, there you go.
I've been saving that one.
Now, this is what you're in for. And again, I think the distinct differences in personality and attitude between the 4 of us is what makes this unity, this group, so special, you know. And when we get together on these live streams, it's basically a free-for-all. And the fact is, I mean, you are an aficionado of all things retro, maybe even more so than me or BK or what's the other guy's name?
Dave.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Then again, they're no slouches either. I'm here.
Oh no, we're all lethal in our own right.
That's it, lethal. And one of the things that I instantly liked about you was your lethal sense of humor. I mean, folks, this man is funny. And I mean funny because it's a natural thing. You're not, I mean, certainly you're a take care of business guy, truly a family man, this I know. But when I saw you, I was like, okay, there's the next Jimmy Kimmel. You've heard me say that before.
Oh, praise from Caesar. Thank you. I'm glad you think I'm funny. My wife stopped thinking I was funny 25 years ago. Of course, I've been telling the same jokes, so she held out as long as she could.
Welcome to my world. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's like Pat's being funny again.
What else is new?
That's the one I hear. Or it's like, honey, perhaps people don't think you're quite as funny as you think you are. I'm like, well.
They're just being polite. No one's that polite. People think you're genuinely funny.
And you've got it in spades. I mean, you know what I just saw this morning was a commencement speech by Jerry Seinfeld. Have you seen that?
I've heard about it extensively on social media. But, I have not, in fact, heard the speech. I really should.
Well, the snippet I saw was really short. It was maybe 2 minutes. But it was so incredible because he's talking to college kids, and indirectly addressing the wokeism of, hypersensitivity, only say the right thing or I'll hate you forever, politically correctness, uptight.
Sounds about right.
All the things that fall under that genre, and him saying, if you don't have a sense of humor, you are not going to make it through this life. And he didn't, and I'm paraphrasing it because it was really, he put it across really well without, being very careful not to step on any feet. But he said, look, life is not going to change, especially by anything that you do or say. So if you can't at least at some point laugh about it, you're in for a heck of a bummer. I mean, again, I really paraphrased the hell out of that, but it was so
that's
poignant.
The problem with the college students these days. I think they enjoy being angry.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very, very sad because it will make for a very disappointing life.
Yeah.
And it's really their loss.
Agreed.
But, as the old saying goes, you can't argue with fools.
Yeah.
And I can hear the college students in the comment section already, and I'm like, you know what, kids, bring it.
Yeah.
I had 30 years to learn how to argue with college kids.
Well, and fortunately, I don't think
I started where I was, an angry college kid.
Yeah. I think we're kind of safe, though, there. It's like, I don't think that's our big following. You may have a large university following, but for me, it's like...
No, we're mostly fogies.
It's like,
we're
who's the old guy?
The median age, I think, is 72.
Yes, exactly. Oh,
and rising fast.
But just last weekend, I was at this thing called the Hollywood Show. I'm sure you saw pictures and stuff. We'd stayed in touch throughout that.
We sure did.
And what I saw was just aging celebrities. But it was pretty incredible because there were some there that were so old that I was kind of concerned they couldn't even sign their names. But the thing is that they were there for their fans, and you could see there was a twinkle in their eye, and that aspect of wanting to have that connection with people, and of course people that obviously love them. That's that definitely gives you a shot in the arm, which, let's face it, most people don't have the luxury of that. And
No,
it was really
they
neat.
really
It
don't.
was really neat seeing that, where at the same time, it was at times one of the saddest things I'd ever seen, because I was with a celebrity working with Kathy Garver, who was so popular, Bob, that I mean, it was nonstop. Autographs, pictures, autographs, purchases, autographs. I mean, it was like, it didn't surprise me. The only other person that I'd had that experience like that was Jerry Mathers, where it was just, and it makes sense because they're iconic.
Oh, it does. It makes perfect sense.
But then,
I mean, I grew up with Family Affair. I remember watching it when I was like, I would have been, I guess, 4 when that show was on, but I remember watching it. I wanted to name my goldfish Sissy.
oh,
That's how much I love the show. My father didn't quite get the reference, so he overruled it. Wouldn't have a sissy in the house. But it shows how we grew up with these characters and the people who played them.
I'm sure he was like, that's a hetero fish if I've ever seen one, young Bob. But
yeah, my father didn't have the typical toxic masculinity of the 70s.
But you know what I was going to say was, by contrast, there were these other the other celebrities sitting around us. Oh no. I mean, I felt so bad for them. Some of them just freaking gave up because Kathy was just boom, 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 and nobody was coming up to these folks. Of course, I couldn't even tell you who the heck they were. Some of them were very, obvious who they were, but within the close proximity that we were in, they just weren't that big, And they
supporting roles on the show that lasted 2 seasons.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
And they just sat there, and it was so sad. They sat there, and then again, other folks just went, "Oh, I'm not doing this," and just disappeared. Left all their pictures on the table, and suddenly they just were gone. And it was like,
that's very sad.
Yeah.
That's very.
You really got to be careful when you're doing that, or at least literally have no ego and enjoy people watching. But again, it would also probably be helpful to have a sense of humor about that. And, like I said, folks, you got to check out some of Thrash's stuff. You get on his YouTube channel, you're going to find things like the worst dad jokes.
I take pride in how bad they are.
It's not just the jokes, which are great, so much as the delivery, which is why I was I'm a fan of this guy, because just the way you tell him the whole. Here, let me do my Thrashpondo impression, and there's the punchline. Next. How'd I do?
That was pretty good.
Not really. You have to literally see it.
You do it better than I do.
Next. People are like, yeah, that sounds really funny, Pat. Yeah.
Well, it's contextual, like all things.
You got to see it, too. It's part of a visual thing, too. But yeah, it's just been great becoming friends with you and having this club of ours. And again, not where, but when? Oh, maybe where. Maybe where and when did the love of this nostalgia, besides, I already mentioned you were a comic book enthusiast. But when did it hit you? When did you know that you really loved the nostalgia that we, of course, love so much right along with you? When did it occur to you that, hey, this is my thing and I can talk about it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I was a kid, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I grew up in the 70s, which, of course, was the sort of high watermark of nostalgia. The post-Vietnam era made us long for simpler times. So it's funny, as the saying goes, I used to reminisce about things I actually wasn't around for. I love to go back to simpler times, which I wasn't even born yet for. But as I grew older, I remember there were actually experiences that I had. And as I got older, I found I could share them with others. The acid test. The thing I always go to is, this was I guess a few years ago. Actually, it was when I was working in the video store, because everyone has a story. But this is back when sell-through media was a thing. To would actually buy physical copies of movies. Anytime somebody wants a movie, there's a story behind it. My father took me to see this when I was 4. I saw this on my first date when I was 15. This was the first movie I watched with my children. That type of thing. But I remember somehow it came up, and I'm sure you remember this. It was the 1976 Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Yes.
And the big thing around this one was not just the humor and charm of Paul Lynde, but it was the first time I had seen Kiss. In fact, if I understand, that was the first time Kiss had really broken through with mainstream media. And I instantly became a Kiss fan. In fact, I remember about a year later, I was invited to a friend's house for a Halloween party. And 2 kids showed up as Gene Simmons. That shows how big Kiss had become in my generation. But anyway, I started talking with another customer. I forget even how Paul Lynde came up, but we started talking about the Halloween special. And we talked for probably 15 solid minutes. And after they left, I had this like really solid, nice, warm, nostalgic feeling. And they did too. And other kids will go, wow, that's crazy. You don't necessarily have to share something with somebody to get nostalgic about it. And that's what really turned me on to nostalgia. It's like as a people, as a culture, as a, dare I say, zeitgeist, we can actually look back on these events. And even though we didn't know each other at the time, we can still bond over them. And it showed me really the power of nostalgic entertainment, and I've never let go of that since.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, Barry King I had last week, his episode premieres tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but it'll be past tomorrow, yesterday. Oh my gosh. Talk myself into a corner here.
We're working out. Get Stephen Hawkins.
We were talking about how wonderful you were, and he's like, and he uses these big words too, and I don't know what they mean, but I just love what he. And I'm like, okay, I gotta have my thesaurus, my Dinothosaurus ready for Bob. It's like,
you know, I had a vintage thesaurus that was stolen right out of my library.
Dear God,
there are no words.
Well, Zeitkis. You used one in the last little segment there, and I'm like, yeah.
I did.
I've never used that. I've heard it.
Well, I think I used it incorrectly. The gist of it is the flavor associated with a specific generation.
There you go. And so Barry was right. You know, I'm not going to match wits with this guy. There's no chance. You know, and it's funny. The thing I've learned in my life, I'm 60 now, and it's interesting that this happens. And I'm wondering if it ever happens to you, Bob. You hear a Thrash, Bob, Thrash. Make up your mind, Pat. I'm going to call you Bob. So I hear a word like visceral or feral cat or things that I just have never even heard before. And I'm like, well, there's a word I've never heard before. And I don't even know what it means. And then I'll find out what it means. And I'll be like, all right, I'm sure I won't use that in a sentence. And then next thing you know, I'm hearing it everywhere.
Isn't that the darndest? It's like the power of suggestion only on a global level. It's like you'll hear a word for the first time, and as you say, like, I don't know. Now I can't think of one off the top of my head. We use ironic as an example. Red and Stimpy. Stimpy uses the word ironic, and I start using ironic in every day. I use it out of context, ironically. Next, you know, Alanis Morissette writes a song about irony. The irony being there's not a single example of irony in the entire song.
Yeah.
But people keep using it. And, well, I think also, ironically, the kids, that's what they do these days. They will take a word and make it their own. That is to say, they will alter the meaning behind it to fit what they're using it for. Like, for example, they wear a T-shirt that says "Have a nice day." Well, I'm wearing it ironically, meaning "Don't have a nice day." Well, no, that's not ironic. That's
pessimistic.
Opposite day, or
right.
Yeah, you can't wear a shirt ironically unless your goal was to go topless in the first place.
There you go.
But as they say, fake it till you make it.
Perfect. But it's true. I mean, it is just the strangest phenomenon. And again, Kathy used this word visceral last weekend, and I had to have her explain it to me. And she used it perfectly about somebody that talks about you right in front of you and says something demeaning without actually realizing they're being demeaning. And I thought, well, I've always wanted a word for that. And I guess that's it. Plus, she had
it's
the
like
opportunity.
The old Groucho Marx line, "How dare you talk about me behind my back in front of my face?"
Exactly. I was like, what's the difference between horizontal and vertical, Kathy? Yes, Pat, let's go back to school and figure this one out. Because I'm having to take these pictures with phones, and it's like, I get those two mixed up. I don't know why. I mean, finally I was like, oh yes, right, horizontal, horizon. Okay, I'm good to go from here on in. But if you don't use them, it's like use it or lose it, right, Bob? I mean, it's like... like technology.
There are some words that I can never, ever keep straight, no matter how many times they've been explained to me. I've almost got it. I've worked out literally and figuratively. Well, I virtually have worked the two of them out.
There's that laugh. There's that laugh I love. Next.
Someone said to me, they go, "You laugh at your own jokes a lot, don't you?" And I go, "Well, someone has to."
Yeah. It's not like I'm in front of a live audience. Well, maybe you're alive, but I don't see you. It's.
Well, if I don't see you, you're not live.
And so that's the
year's audience.
Well, and speaking of live, though, you're a braver man than I because you do stream. You does stream.
Ah, yes, I do.
You are a streamer. You're such a silly streamer.
Islands in the stream.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I have a sudden urge to use the restroom. Anyway, I was like, okay, so I watched Dave do this, which of course he does for the RetroPaloozas, which, after doing these 3 interviews, I backed him into the corner. Means we're going to do another one, whether he likes.
Yay! We're so overdue. We really are.
And even he said that, so that means it's going to happen. And there's been times when he's like, "So Pat, why don't you host this one?" Yeah.
You know why I can't do it? Because I have these weird technology gremlins which haunt my very existence. The bigger the project I try to bite off, the more things are likely to fall apart. Just the other day the sound went. And I sounded like I was talking underwater.
That's pretty good.
Well, practice. Lots of practice.
Well, the thing is, I'm a technophobe. I mean, I have to embrace it. I've had to embrace it being a musician and recording my own material and getting used to all of that and learning the programs and all of the video work that I've done. And it's not something that I just go running to going, I just can't wait to dive into this new program. And it's like, because you know what goes along with it. What goes along with it is headaches, learning curves. The term clicking yourself into a corner always comes up. Even my best buddy, who has helped me in all my music videos and all my more elaborate Golden Rage of TV videos, who is just, if you watch some of those, you will see the hands of an expert on these things. He bought a new computer, Bob.
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah. A $4,000 computer. Mm-hmm. It's sitting in a box in the middle of his room, and he's just staring at it, afraid to open it.
That's what I would do. I would, just the idea of such a technology terrifies me.
Because, the chances are there's something wrong with it.
or it won't do what I want it to do, and I'll spill coffee on it accidentally, of course.
Either that or they already spilled coffee on it before they assembled it. It's that thing. You just never know. You just never know. And you can go highbrow like that stuff. And even then, it's like, it's that term, more money, more problems.
I would give it a shot, though. I would accept the more problems if I had more money.
I agree.
I've had the less money, more problems for enough decades. I'd like it.
I hear you. Well,
give it a shot.
Again, it's you got to be brave. You got to kind of close your eyes and just dive in and hope for the best. And maybe you get lucky. Because somehow it seems like technology requires a bit of that these days. And
well, maybe that's actually going to be our saving grace. The AI will take over, and it will be just like, Hal, insert a photo of Henry Winkler here, and Hal, could you edit this for me? And Hal, and the computer will just do everything for you. Well, certainly, Thrash. Should I put your opening monologue in here, Thrash? Would you like the closing credits here, Thrash? I mean, I can just picture, like, me and my buddy AI walking down the avenue.
I'm sorry, Thrash. I'm afraid I can't do that. Yeah.
Open the pod bay doors, Mal. I knew you'd get the reference. I knew you would. I never lost faith in you.
Well, and again, it's everywhere, and it's getting more and more everywhere. And I will say this. I use it right now in a very mild capacity. Adobe products have worked it into their programs, which I use Adobe for, all my thumbnails, my photo work, Photoshop, Premiere Pro for my video work. And I will say the Photoshop thing, that the AI Photoshop, the generative fill thing that they're doing is beyond belief good. I mean, I'm not going to be able to explain it. It was just like, I'm going to make a thumbnail for Kent McCord, and I want LA streets at night. And all of a sudden, I have the coolest background you could ever even dream of having that has nothing to do with the picture that I'm using. And yet, with all the lighting and the way it's put in, it looks like it's a real picture. And
wow.
I mean, that's awesome. The other one, and I will actually be using it in this case. Here I am. I'm doing a freaking plug for Adobe. Can you believe it? You'd think they'd at least give me a discount. Anyway. It's Adobe Voice Enhancer, Bob.
Really?
Really. When you get a chance. When you get a chance.
I like it already.
I tell you, listen to say it right, Pat. Listen to my podcast sometime, or just in the last two with Dave and Barry. They do not sound like the phone call that I had. It is astonishing what this program does. All you got to do is just drop the audio, the mixed down audio of their part into this little box and let it do its thing. And suddenly a terrible sounding phone call, cell phone, whatever you want to call it, just sounds like they're in the same room with me on a professional microphone.
That is amazing. Wow.
Without tweaking.
And then when you consider all this stuff is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
That where is it going to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
Maybe in 5 years I'll look good.
That's the scary thing. It's just like, is it going to replace us? I mean, in some cases.
They're already using filters, and like, for example, and I'm not going to name names, even though I don't particularly like the person. But it's my oldest friend's ex-wife. You see her on Facebook, and she's using these filters. And I'm like, honey, you don't look that good 30 years ago, okay? You're not fooling anyone. That is not you. But these filters work, apparently.
Well, yeah, I fell for her. This weird. Vice versa. I don't know who we're talking about, quite frankly, folks. But
I wish you all the luck. I wish you better luck than he had. That's for darn sure.
Oh gosh, again.
And I thought my exes were crazy.
Yeah,
and they are.
No, I mean
even some of them before they met me.
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm lucky, Bob. I gotta say I'm 1 for 1.
Likewise.
Yeah, there you go.
How long have you been married now?
27 years. Yeah.
I actually have you beat.
Do you? I bet.
I'm going to be 29 this September.
Good for you.
29 years. Thank you. But still, I'm very proud of you. Most people go about 4 years these days and then move on to the next wife and the next and the next and the next and the next and the next. But the fact that we're both pushing 30, I think we should both be very proud.
Oh, it's true. And can imagine that. Imagine getting a divorce. My friend got a divorce. It took him 10 years to get through it. And well, there's something I won't ever do. I mean,
what I can't figure out, this is what I can't figure out. I mean, anyone can take a bad choice, go through a horrible divorce, and learn their lesson. I have friends who have been married like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, dude, get that in. You know?
It's like an addiction, you know?
you know, I can understand the guy who loses an arm in the wood chipper. I can understand the guy who loses all 4 limbs in the wood chipper on separate incidents. Okay, at a certain point, you're as irresponsible as they are. You know?
There you go. And yes, folks, that was a Fargo reference.
Yes, but it's actually based on a true story.
Yeah.
It actually is based on a true story. A man killed his wife. This is a true story. A man killed his wife, rented a wood chipper to dispose of the remains, cleaned it with an inch of its life to so there would not be any hint of shenanigans. And the problem was when he returned it, it was spotless. It was like showroom new, and they go, it wasn't this clean when we gave it to you. So it made the forensic experts go, and that's how they caught him.
My gosh. And
I know, right?
I think it didn't.
I get a million little anecdotes.
I figure, the one was probably pretty scattered already, and it just kind of. Next.
Yeah, man, that story was all over the place. A lot of loose ends.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, honey. Honey, where'd you put the Elmer's glue? I want to try to piece it back together, baby.
Yeah.
This is what you did to my heart. This is my heart. Oh, my gosh. There we go. So ends the Bob and Pat show.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if I was to go toe-to-toe with you on that kind of stuff, I would just be, I would be in the wood chipper. So, no, I'm not going to do it. You know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about television.
My favorite subject.
Well, I was thinking it's either that or comic books. Bob may just be like, why don't you talk about the fun stuff? But, yes, I thought I'm going to pick her out. People are like, do you ever edit these, Pat? Yes.
I found the unedited adds a certain homespun charm. Anyone can make professional grade videos. Mine look like old stuff. Nostalgic.
And it's like, oh, I have to put forth this persona of some sort of strange, stupid perfection. And, as a talking head thing, because that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to be and I'm still kind of trying to be a spokesperson of some sort. There's no room for mistakes. There's no room for mistakes in that. And there's also no room for mistakes when performing music online, too.
I always wondered how they did that. I mean, I've been going to concerts, since I was a kid. I haven't gone many years, but I've done it. And I'm like, how can you remember every single note and every single word to every single song for 2.5 hours? I don't, and then do that night after. I don't know how they do it,
I think it's...
I try to recite, row, row, row your boat, and I flub a line.
It's because it's different, Bob. It's not the left brain or the right brain or whatever those brains do. It's not, what's the term? It's not a scholastic. It's not a, I've read this, I've gone to take these courses and I'm versed in these things and thus I will remember forever. It's not that. It's an actual passion. It comes from the heart. I don't know if there's lack of a better way of saying it, but because it's not. Oh gosh, I'm really not getting this point across well. It's not.
No, I think I know exactly what you mean. It's not rote memorization. You basically you have a feel for it.
Right, and yet it is, because unless you have it so well memorized, you can't be free with it. And so it's kind of that's the tough thing about being a musician. You know, I don't ever really. I'm not big on repetition, but without it, you wouldn't have dexterity. And you know, a problem is with repetition, it becomes a lazy way to learn stuff. You think you do it enough times, you'll learn it. When in actuality, it's the opposite. You need to learn it in your head before you need to learn it in your fingers, because the fingers aren't going to give the head the information when it comes time to do it in front of people. You know, it's a really weird thing. But again, I'm about to embark on playing music again on my videos, and there's no mistakes. No mistakes allowed. Oh God, what have I just got myself into? There's an edit. You know, somebody will see the edit. Most people will be like, oh, that's a nice place to put an edit. Most musicians will go, well, you just screwed up there. You know, it's like that. And so, I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting myself into, Bob. Either way.
I'm sure it'll be perfect. I've loved everything else you've done up to this point. I'm sure it'll be perfect.
Well, thanks. It's the Mutual Admiration Club here, bro. So let's talk about TV. Now, I want to go decade by decade, but we don't really have to do this. There's no real rules here. You know, I had Barry King, and, you know, with him, he's like, well, which decade shall we start? Because I've got about 50 for that one. And then we can move on to the other one. I got about 30 for that one. And I'll be like, okay, Barry, 1 or 2 per decade, and that's it. And even then,
which is what I held myself to. And a little secret, that was a lot tougher than I realized it was going to be. In fact, I have a couple of honorable mentions I might have to sneak in there as well. But in any event, I am more than prepared.
I will allow for that. I allowed for that with Barry. Dave Sundstrom, however, followed the rules impeccably perfect. So, are you surprised?
Not at all. Not at all.
Of course not. Okay, so, all right, here we go. Thrashpondo Pons. 1950s. Give me
1950s. I'm going to open up with what is arguably my favorite show of all time, at least in my top 5. And it's a show, it's a science fiction show, so naturally it falls into my bandwidth. But it was also a social commentary show. And it brought important issues about our country, our society. And it was hosted by one of the icons of modern American television. And you've probably already figured it out by this stage of the ballgame. It is The Twilight Zone. And I understand the bulk of it was in the actual 1960s, but it premiered in 1959. So therefore, in my book, it qualifies as a 50s TV program.
Totally counts. Totally counts.
Excellent.
And I could not add to that, you know, except that it's really amazing. Like when I said earlier, we were talking earlier about never hearing a word before, and then suddenly you're hearing it everywhere. Every time there's one of those Twilight Zone marathons, or they used to do the marathons more, wish they would, there'd always be one on where I'm like, I don't remember this one. It's like, what? I thought I'd seen everything of everything. But there were so many that it's truly amazing that you can still discover new episodes of that when you dive in. Clearly, there's the classic ones, the most popular, but just the body of work alone is astonishing when it comes to that show.
Absolutely astounding, yeah.
You know, so okay, well, there's a good one. You got 2 for the 50s?
I do have 2 for the 50s. The second one is a little less socially conscientious, but every bit as entertaining. I went with The Honeymooners. I fell in love with that show when I was a kid. There was some local station that used to show it on late night TV, and I started watching it. It's just a show where everyone is at their best. Not just Jackie Gleason, but Art Carney. The two of them were just so incredibly spectacular together. And Audrey Meadows, I thought, did an astounding job as a foil for Crandon. And the fact that they managed to pull that show with such a tight budget. I mean, 90% of it is done in their apartment, but it's done almost like a stage play. But yet at the same time, it never feels like it. It honestly feels like you're sitting in on an argument between a married couple. And it only lasted one season. They managed to do, I think, like 39 episodes in that one season. But everyone said, oh, no, that show ran for years. No. One show, one season, and still considered one of the top 50s TV shows of all time. Not just comedies. One of the best 50s TV shows.
Well, there you have it. This is why I love these guys so much, folks. I did not know that. That's amazing. And it's good that you said other people say the same thing, because then I don't feel so left out in the cold. But I will tell you this. I loved it too. You know, Norton, address the ball.
Hello, ball.
But again, guys, Dave, Barry, and Thrash have not seen each other's answers. So I can tell you now that you and Barry have agreed on one show for the 1950s, because he did too also mention the Honeymooners. So very good. Did you want to throw an honorable mention in on that decade or not?
No, the 50s, those were my two standout choices.
Good.
The 50s were actually the easiest.
Good. Okay, now on to the much more difficult 60s.
Oh, this was a toughie.
Yeah. Lay it on me, baby.
Okay, so for the 60s, and I agonized over these. Well, one was a hands-down favorite. It's one of the first shows I remember as a kid. I used to watch this with my dad. I still watch it to this day. I had the entire series on videotape, and now I have it again on DVD. I won't go to Blu-ray, but I will always have at least one copy, and that is the iconic Wagon Train in Space, Star Trek.
Yes.
Hands down, my favorite TV show from the 60s.
Well, I can't argue with that because it was mine too. And guess what? There's an perfect alignment between the Retro Pals now. Go figure. Is that a surprise? No surprise. Yeah, we all agreed on that one.
Good.
The high point of my last weekend, I'm sure you saw on my social media. It was a high point. I'm sitting with Kathy Garver, and she's talking to this gal, and I'm kind of looking down at the floor, and they're carrying on a conversation. There's nobody at the table, and I look up, and it's Barbara Luna.
Yes.
And I'm like, Kathy's carrying on, and Barbara turns away to talk to somebody, and I'm looking at Kathy and going, that's Barbara Luna. She goes, yeah, Luna's a friend of mine. Yeah. I'm like, well, Kathy, you don't understand. That's Barbara Luna. She's like, well, quit, Pat, just so you know. It's Barbara Luna, okay? Don't call her Barbara. Or just call her Luna. And I went, okay. And, the funniest thing I got to share with you, I told her I was in love with her forever. And her response was to fake a slap at me and go, snap out of it.
Moonstruck. I love it.
Dude, I mean, I knew exactly what she was referring to. And I thought that was hilarious. And then I really started putting it together. Her name, Luna.
As in Luna, moon.
Yeah.
Luna, the Italian word for moon.
Oh, my gosh. I don't even think if she knew that one. But it just turned out that way. And then, more coincidences followed. But I won't bother you with that anymore. We're going to move on to your next 1960s choice.
This one I agonized over. So I decided to go with the one that seemed to have the most staying power socially. And that is part musical, part Richard Lester style slapstick comedy, and that is The Monkees.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
I adored that show as a kid. I remember a station used to, for some reason, they only played it during the summer. I think it's because they some of the local programming went on hiatus during the summer. So during the summers, they would air it at like 4:00 in the afternoon. And I remember I would go to summer camp, but I would get off the bus and I would race home so I could catch the Monkees. And this is reruns at this point, because I'm talking 78, 79 at this point. It's already a rerun. But I remember like watching it. I remember loving it. I remember when in limited capacity they got back together in the 80s and had like that little comeback thing. But that TV show, they made TV look like so much fun. And what's really amazing is when you see the behind the scenes, Hollywood isn't fun when you actually work in it. And in reality, theirs was particularly not fun. They were exploited by the networks. They didn't particularly like each other as people. It was actually, the hours were long and the rewards were dismal, and they never actually got to do the show they wanted to do. So when you figure anyone who could look like they're having that much fun when they're that miserable are phenomenal actors in my book.
Yeah, and I think it showed mainly in Nesmith. I mean,
yes,
and it's no secret that he was the least happy with the situation. But I mean, he would literally mock the songs while they were performing the music videos of them by just literally playing something that was not the song. I mean, there were times when they were his songs that it was great. I mean, Papa Blue Jeans? Is it Blue Jean? What is it? I have no more than I did before. But now I love that song. I mean, there's just, his songs were so great. But of course, Boyce and Hart were no slouches. I mean, come on. Pleasant Valley Sunday.
But then again, he started writing songs before he was in the Monkees. In fact, he wrote into Ron Statt's Different Drum, which he actually performs in one episode of the Monkees.
Yeah, at like 100 times the speed of actual, right? He rushes it like stupidly.
He does. He flubs it deliberately.
Thank you.
and he breaks the fourth wall and winks at the audience while he goes, "When you make eyes at me, and then he goes,
yeah.
I think he had to do that because I think even though he wrote it, I think it was a copyright issue because I think it was owned by a different studio. So he had to deliberately flub it. That's my wild guess.
Well, we've discovered something here, and that is,
which is,
we both know a lot about the Monkees. So what I think is,
I can see that. Certainly, you know as much, if not more, than I do. So, and I know a frightening amount now that I think of it. So, yes.
Here's what we're going to do: is we're going to stop talking about the Monkees, because what I want to do is a future podcast of you and me talking about the Monkees. What do you say?
I will have so much fun. I just have enough tidbits. We can do an entire podcast on my trivia and did you knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to stop talking about them immediately and save the rest for a podcast. Color me in like Flint.
We're going to do that. And I'll leave it with this. Because of the Monkees, I became a musician. Okay, moving on.
But move on. In this decade, I did have an honorable mention.
Oh, you did?
I wanted to enter.
Really? In the 60s, you had an honorable mention? Nothing but crap on in that decade.
It was just a great decade for TV. It killed me not to use The Fugitive.
Yes.
It killed me, not just because it's one of the best shows ever made. It killed me because it was such an influential show. In fact, if you watch my channel, you know that I consider The Fugitive to be the template for virtually all of the best U.S. science fiction television of the 70s and 80s. Or at least the best of it.
Wow.
So The Fugitive was not only an amazing show, but also one of the most influential shows of all time.
And there you go. See, you did not let it down. You needed it there. And I'm glad you did it. So very good. Very good. I concur.
Thank you.
I concur. Next.
Thank you.
Next decade. 70s.
Oh, before going to the 70s, did I hit the nail on the head with either of our two retro pals?
Yeah, not the Monkees, that's for sure. And of course, Star Trek, yes.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And they did not mention The Fugitive, so you're very unique and standing out already. Go figure. All right.
I'm sure at least one of them, their second show was Batman.
Yes, that would be Dave.
I was going to say, I know Dave said Batman.
Clearly. Geez, didn't have to think twice about that one. But
no, that was not a toughie.
No.
So, but now the 70s. And now the 70s was a really fun one. Now, it wasn't fun because there wasn't a lot to choose from. In fact, the 70s was also an amazing decade for TV. The face of TV was changing in such ways. There were so many innovative shows that I would have loved to have mentioned. But I picked two particular favorites, and I picked them for a couple of particular reasons, which I'll explain after I present them. Number one was sadly a one-season wonder, and that is the TV adaptation of The Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I love the show. It was actually part of my childhood. It aired on a school night, but my best friend, who just happened to live across the street, my best friend at the time, we both got permissions from our moms to do like a sleepover, watch-over party if Planet of the Apes was on. And one night, I would go to his house and bring the snacks. And the next week, he would come to my house and bring the snacks. And it was like literally part of our week. We looked forward to it. We loved that show. And while it varied wildly from the movie franchise, it was just as much fun and just as much entertaining. I thought the characterization was absolutely amazing. The only thing that killed it was very expensive to make per episode because of all the makeup artists and whatnot. And also, it was up against a couple of heavyweights, Chico and the Man and Sanford and Son, I believe.
Yeah.
And comedy was king in the 70s.
Yeah.
So sadly, the show didn't have a chance, really. But for a one-season wonder, I thought it was great. Oh, and by the way, while we're on the subject, it was The Fugitive incarnate.
I never would have made... Well, I will agree with you. Underrated for sure. And, how great was it that they were able to get Roddy McDowell, I mean, that brought in that added authenticity, if that's what it needed. It didn't really need it, but let's face it. I mean, Roddy was the reason, not the whole reason, but a large part of the reason for the success of both the film franchise and the television show, in my opinion.
He was more more important than Heston.
Who? Heston. Let's see. I gotta look him up. Let's see. You blew it all to hell. You blew it all to hell. Let's see. Oh, yes. Charlton Heston. Sure, I know him.
It's people. It's the wrong movie.
Right. But there's something tasty about him. Okay. Anyway. Oh boy. Okay. Good one.
What's Charlton Heston's favorite monthly periodical? It's people. Sorry. On that note, I'm going to crawl out of that and go into number 2 for the 1970s, and this time I picked a Saturday morning kids show. Of course, I was a kid in the 70s, so I had to at least give one kid show.
Sure.
And I gave Land of the Lost.
Land of the Lost.
I was a dinosaur fanatic when I was a child, and this was nonstop dinosaurs. And on top of that, it wasn't just dinosaurs. This was like a science fiction thrill ride. There were aliens. There were time slips. There were alternate universes. There were Dino Sapiens. I mean, this was a real heady show for a kid's television program.
Yeah. And let's go with the fact that it starred two of my favorite people on the planet, Wesley Ure and Kathy Coleman. Kathleen, I call her. By the way, it's Wesley and Kathy's TV Talk. That's their new podcast. And it's also going to be on YouTube. Folks, you can look for that. They just started it. They're underway. I talked to them about it last weekend, and they're very excited. You got to know it's going to be good. You got to know they're going to have good guest stars. And I got to tell you, Thrash, going to a convention with those guys, it's so funny because no matter where they are in that big room, you know where they are. The Raft.
the yellow raft.
They get the people in the
Marshall,
raft,
Will, and Holly,
and they simulate going over the falls. So all you hear throughout the day is, ah!
And I gotta tell you that I'm absolutely chartreuse with envy that you've got to meet them, and I have not. I am chartreuse.
My joke was I'd walk by and they do, and they go, ah, they get to then I go, chew. Like, Pat, don't ruin our take, you know. And it's so great because they go around and get all the other celebrities to get in the raft with them. That's their new thing.
Yeah. Well, it's a great stick.
Totally.
Because who doesn't know? I mean, they even did it on the Family Guy once.
Totally.
Marshall, Will, and Holly. And, like, everyone will just join in.
Yeah.
It's up there with Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that theme song. Now, granted, it lasted 3 years, which is amazing, absolutely amazing for a Saturday morning TV show. If they get 2 out of a Saturday morning cartoon show, that's outstanding. They got 3. But still, it ended in, 1978? 1977? I mean, it ended every bit of 50 years ago, and people still know every word.
Yeah. Even
of the last season, Uncle Jack's been searching. You know, even though they had to update it.
Yeah. You know, and folks, I gotta plug Kathy's book, Run Holly Run. If you want to read a book about child celebrity and just be blown away that she's still around, and by no fault of hers, just by the luck of the draw, that woman has been through the gamut, and I just so glad she came out at the other end and turned into the wonderful person that she is and that I love. Named my cat after her dog. It's Peekaboo, and we exchange pictures of Peekaboo all the time. And I wanted to do a quick little interview with them, not interview, but like a plug. So I had my phone. It's like, here I am with Wesley Ewer and Kathy Coleman, who you would know as Will and Penny Robinson from. And they look at me like, you jerk.
Oh, Jesus. I know, Lost in Space.
Like a land of the lost in space. Okay, take 2. Here I am with Wesley Ewer and Kathy Coleman, who played Will and Penny Marshall from Laverne and Shirley. It just turned into this disaster. I probably should have kept it. And they were great because they were like fake punching me and stuff. And it was, oh God, just wonderful people. That was great. Good one. Good one, Bob. What else you got?
Oh, for the 70s?
I don't know. Do you have an honorable mention?
Well, actually, in a little bit of honorable mention, and I'm sure I could, but in a little bit of honorable mention, I want to say the reason that I decided to go with those 2 hands down, and I'm sure I've told you this on several occasions, but people viewing this work of genius of ours may have not known this. I conceptualized a crossover fan fiction years ago of Planet of the Apes and Land of the Lost. Because if there is one, well, in this case it'd be 2. If there are 2 shows that would warrant an amazing crossover, it's those 2. And I envisioned where the mounted apes would take Grumpy down with their lariats. The Sleestacks would fight the ape soldiers. It was going to be a lot of fun. Urka was going to continuously confuse Uncle Jack with the astronaut Burden. Because, of course, they were played by the same person.
Yeah. and of course, Chaka was some ape's lost child. Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
There was, in fact, and this is a little known fact, there was actually a deleted concept in one of the Planet of the Apes movies. There was going to be an ape-human hybrid, but they decided they didn't. It would have been too. It would have drawn away from the main plot too much, so they didn't do it. But there's actually a screen test of this kid in heavy makeup. So you could have resurrected that plot point if you wanted to. There's just so much. There's so much you could do with a crossover Land of the Apes and Land of the Lost crossover that I just thought you could almost make it into like a role-playing game or something like that. Because there's so much to work with. So if I could just get Netflix on the phone, I think I might really have something.
There you go. There you go. Have at it. Have at it. I like it.
And if I have to have an honorable mention for the 70s, it would have to be Happy Days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. There you are. You are in alignment with Dave Sundstrom. Very good. Another alignment. I like it.
Good. I like alignment.
So then there's the 80s, Bob. What do you got?
Well, in my opinion now, there was a progression of television where just each decade seemed to get a bit better. Probably because you get more past the censors. And if there's one thing I loved about the 80s, people were getting away with so much that pretty much they could just run roughshod. But not just that, the quality of TV, with some major exceptions, but the quality of TV was getting much, much better in the 80s. I think the 80s may be the high watermark for American television. That would be a hill to die on, so I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that right now. But I decided to go with two shows which I think are absolutely amazing, both for quality, content, and production value. And I'm going to open with what it is, in my opinion, the best police procedural show ever made, and that is Hill Street Blues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I absolutely loved Hill Street Blues. Now, it went off the rails in the last season, like so many great TV shows do, so I'm going to skip that one. But I got to tell you, up to that, the characters, the portrayals of these characters by the actors in question, the story arcs, the chemistry between the cast, it wasn't just a police procedural show. It was a Shakespearean opera.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Yes.
And I fell in love with that show and loved it.
Oh, yeah.
Until I went up to college and didn't watch as much TV during the week. And hey, let's be careful out there. I decided to go with medical show. And you probably know where this is going, because I fell in love with this. And ER would be a tough nut to crack to say that ER might be the number one medical drama of all time. But I don't know. I could probably make a convincing case for my favorite, and that is Saint Elsewhere, a medical drama / soap opera with an amazing, outstanding cast that worked absolutely wonderful together. Very young Howie Mandel was on it when he was still a stand-up comedian from Canada. Denzel Washington, Ed Begley Jr., and of course, William Daniels, Mr. Feeney himself. William Daniels as the foil for the entire staff.
Yeah.
As the sort of hard-nosed senior physician.
Right. Now, didn't he do the voice of Kit, too? Am I mixing him up?
He certainly did, Michael.
Yeah. See, folks, I know stuff, too, man. All right. Jeez. I just hang out with experts. Makes me kind of sound like I know what I'm talking about. Oh.
Was he at that Hollywood extravaganza you were at, by the way? Because
no,
he's got to be pushing 100 now.
No, I didn't see him. No, nobody from Knight Rider was there. It was. Well, you know what? I'm going to go into the whole thing as from my experience on BK on the Air the day after tomorrow on the show.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
So I would say, folks, tune in Saturday to WBHF Radio, and you can get that .org. You can hear it, and there's also a WBHF app. Barry told me that there is now, so you can listen to BK on the Air 10 to noon Eastern. And on Saturday, I'm going to do my Hollywood show recap. So we did some of it on this one, though, Thrash, for sure. I mean, telling you about Wesley and Kathy and Sharon Lawrence. Oh, I'm still getting over that one.
Blown.
Bob, I got to tell you, this is as good as I could have hoped for. You are a stellar intellectual when it comes to this stuff, and a historian, and all of the great things that I could add to that above it, with a sense of humor that is golden. I don't even have enough air to get through all the compliments I want to give you, buddy, but I sure appreciate you being on with me, man.
Well, I had an absolutely outstanding time. I could chat with you all day, as you know, we've done that. But I've had so much fun with you. I've had so much fun talking. I could do that all day, too. And you know what? If your audience enjoys this half as much as I did, then I've enjoyed it twice as much as them.
Oh, well, then where can they go to enjoy you?
Right on. Well, that's the great thing about having a self-titled channel. You don't have to tell people where to go in as much detail. It's Thrashpondo Pons, and it's right here on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube and then look for Thrashpondo Pons, and I will bring you again. I present the best in
everything,
nostalgic entertainment. Sci-fi, horror, film, and literature, a specialty. But also my series on dad jokes, my series on comic books, my series on if you're a fan of music, particularly weird, odd, creepy music, you've got to check out my creepy classics, where I deconstruct a very upbeat pop song with a very dark understory. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So you see, folks, why this guy is so cool and why we love him. He's just the best. And Pons, it's Pons, not Ponds.
Pons.
Yes, and not and Thrashpondo. So don't get mixed up there. It's Pondo. So yeah, wait a minute. Let's just confuse the hell out of everybody. What do you say, Bob?
Yeah. You spell like it sounds with a T, but a bum.
Oh, man. Well, hey, thanks, Thrash, man. I really appreciate you being on with me. And stick around, because I'm going to say bye, and then we'll say bye properly, okay?
Fine, we'll say bye and then say bye. I will stick.
There you have it. Another Retro TV Radio podcast in the books. Be sure to check out Thrashpondo's YouTube channel, which I'll leave a link to in this episode's description. His live streams are always a hoot, as are his dumb dad joke lists. The man is an entertainer, so if you, like me, like to be entertained, go to his channel right now and show your support for this fellow Retro Pal by liking and subscribing to his channel. That's it for the Retro Pal cluster of interviews. It's been my utter pleasure being joined by my three other pals, Dave Sundstrom, Barry King, and Bob Thrashpondo Pons. I have nothing but the utmost respect and appreciation for these gentlemen. Be sure to join the Retro Pal reunion on Dave Sundstrom's channel on July 15th, tentatively, which will be the first RetroPalooza reunion of 2024. You can follow me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Golden Rage of TV, and on X at Golden Rage of TV1. Once again, this is your host, Pat McCormack, and thanks again for listening to Retro TV Radio.